Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Thank you for stopping by. It's in my spirit just to speak to you all, those of you that's truly being led by God and you're having a hard time even sometimes with your family. Your family feels like you're too holy. Your family feels as if, who do you think you are? Because they were saved before you were. Maybe even people from your church, from your community, those who were saved before you, those who have known Christ before you, but even those in your household. And you find yourself feeling lonely, and sometimes you're wondering if you're over the top. But you know, my brothers and sisters, what happens a lot is that sometimes when whoever introduces you to the Lord, and sometimes what you see, whether it was your family or just watching people in church, you saw a level of carnality. You saw carnal Christians, people that did things, they went to church in one setting, but they lived another life. They went to church in one setting, but they walked in the works of the flesh in other arenas. And the works of the flesh you'll find in Galatians 5, beginning at 16. They were doing adultery, fornication, drunkenness, strife, revelings, dissensions. They were doing all these things in another setting. And to some degree, that's how we may have started based on the things that we saw, we witnessed, through Christians throughout our lives, Christians that you may have seen coming up. Sometimes your parents just sent you to church, but they didn't go to church. So they sent you to church, but you were coming home and seeing other things and other lifestyles and other ways of being. And now God has set you aside. God has pulled you out unto himself, and he's beginning to take the blinders off your eyes. He's taking the stoppers out of your ears. He's truly showing you that we have to serve him in spirit and in truth. There can be no carnality. And now you find yourself being faced with and being ridiculed and mocked by and even being put down by those who feel like, hey, we've known God longer than you. Who are you to tell me what to do or what is holy and what is not? Who are you to advise me? But the Lord is saying that he has called you, and not to lose confidence in that. He's called you out of carnality. There are people who they say they know God, but they are very, very carnal. They live double lives. They read the word. They'll sing about holiness in one setting, but they live unholy lives. And so it bothers them when you're saying, hey, your words and your actions must line up. We must follow the word of God. They want you to go on the crooked path. But God is showing me that sometimes when people bring you to Christ, and sometimes when you've been brought to Christ by family, or when you started into a church with other people, sometimes they want to keep you in line. They want you to be saved, but not that saved. They want you to get saved, but they want you to follow their rules and their ways. And when you are following after Christ, it's problematic. And so sometimes you're conflicted, or you find yourself being alone. God is just calling you closer to him. And he said to just realize this. The word of God says, who is your mother? Who's your father? Who's your brother? Those who does the will of my Father. Do not find it unusual that you've been called out by yourself. John was called out by himself. There were many that were called out by themselves. And even Jesus was called out by himself. He carried that cross. He endured it by himself. It is not unusual for you to be alone and for you to be called out and for you to be experiencing the things that you're experiencing right now, because God is calling you up higher. He's calling you out of carnality. He's calling you out of religion. But wow, it's hard when it's the ones that brought you to Christ and told you about Jesus, those who were saved long before you. What happens when it's your older people? That could be your grandparents. That's the patriarchs of the family, the matriarch of the family, that is telling you you're doing too much. But God says, I have called you. Do not be hindered by who's been around longer and what their position is. But I've called you unto me. I've called you into truth. I've called you unto righteousness. I've called you out of carnality. I've awakened you. Awake, O sleeper. You've been risen from the dead. So God is saying, have no doubts that I have called you. Continue in my way. Remove yourself from the path of carnality. And in removing yourself from the path of carnality, there will be conflict. There will be people that will be against you, and you will know them by their fruits, because they will begin to get very nasty. They begin to get very testy. They will try to set you up. They will try to counter you. But that is what you should look at and count it joy, because you're seeing the work of the flesh in them. And so you know the spirit that you're dealing with. Continue on my path. This is the word of the Lord today.